Hey, so the Danish Nationals is next weekend, and I have a meta video for you guys about what is potentially going to happen. Let's go. So this is the meta of the Danish Nationals 2025. The pack itself is an escalation-ish tournament, so you make two lists, one for 600 points and one for 1250, and we're playing 6 games, and 2 of them will be at 600 points. You could take all the platoon types, but you had to take one rifle platoon per other type of platoon that you had in your list. So if you had 4 platoons, 2 of them needed to be rifle platoons. There was a maximum of 1 forward artillery observer and 1 multi-rocket launcher. Unfortunately, there's only 20 players signed up, which is a rather small Danish national this year. We like the last one was 40 players ish, 38 or something like that. So it's a little bit smaller, and I don't know why that is. Maybe it's this escalation stuff. Maybe it's the location where we're at, or maybe it's the weekend. I have no idea why it is this size, but it's still 20 players. So and a lot of the good competitive tournament players here in Denmark are going. Although I have to say, not the current ruling Danish champion. Nations. We have quite a lot more Brits going than we normally see in other tournaments abroad. So there are 4 British lists. 4 players are taking Brits, because your 600 points and your 1250 point had to be the same nation. And we have an even spread between Americans, Germans, and Finns. So the Finnish have really boosted here in Denmark. The Germans, I had expected there to be more Germans, I have to say, just because it's the only army book that's out yet. But not so, which perhaps does speak to how good the army book is, or I don't know, maybe. We have 2 Soviets, 2 Italians, so the Soviets have fallen out of favor, whereas the Italians, I thought they were out of favor as well, but 2 people are bringing them, and one of the lists, at least one of the lists, is very, very good. We have a Polish list and a French list. So the order dice spread. At 1250, we have between 11 and 24. 11 is very low, but that is also a completely new player who's going to play in his first tournament, and this is not yet a fixed list. I know the TO is talking to him about maybe changing up some stuff, because his list was not legal, the first one he sent in. We shall see what happens. Anyway, as it stands right now, we have 11 to 24 in total, with 18.8 on average, which makes me a little worried. Again, I said this last time I went to a tournament as well. I am below this average. At 600 points, we have between 8 and 13, which is way more what I thought it would be, like spot on. So, and we have an average of 10.5. So you can already see that Goldilocks zone, I'm talking about 18.8. So Goldilocks zone would be 18, 19 order dice-ish for 1250. At least in the meta that I'm in. At 600 points, it's way lower. It's between 10 and 11. But that seems reasonable, doesn't it? What army builds are we seeing? Well, at 1250, there are tanks everywhere. Everyone is bringing, except one brave person, everyone is bringing tanks. So again, I've said this before, I think the meta has shifted. Bold action is no longer an infantry game, it's a tank game. It's a game of how you use your tanks to kill the enemy's infantry, which does suck a little bit, but it is what it is. It's where we're at. We're also seeing, so like 18 out of 19 lists that are in right now have armor in some form, right? But we're also seeing something new happening. So 5 of these lists are trying out mechanized infantry, so infantry in some sort of vehicle. And it's not the vehicles that we're used to seeing back in the olden days of version 2. A lot more white scout cars, let me just say that, which I am guilty of bringing at least 2, right? So I am one of those mechanized lists at 1250. Also, we're seeing quite a lot of people trying out Death Stars, so heavier tanks, 9+ or even above tanks. And we shall see how that works out for them. It's still something that people are working with, and we're even seeing a couple of people trying out veteran heavy tanks, which is, where you can't really get pinned by all the chaff of the enemy's AT selection. So it's really an antidote to the kind of lists that I'm seeing most of the time, the autocannon, the light autocannon spam, and the anti-tank rifle spam, right? That is the antidote to that. We're also seeing quite a lot of MSU lists, so multiple small units. Especially people are taking advantage of course, the light mortars and the heavy weapons platoon. We're seeing quite a lot of MG teams being taken here. HMG teams and MMG teams being taken for their cheapness and their maneuverability. I know what it sounds like. But they're still infantry, right? They can go up and take objectives. They don't need to sit there fixed like AA guns need to. We're also seeing one person bring barbecue. One brave soul brings barbecue. And it's the only barbecue list. There's only one person who's taken engineers, and there are 0 people who have taken recce platoons. That is very telling for how the meta has been devolving, right? Devolving. Sorry, that was a slip of the tongue. That's very telling. We're also seeing one person bring a gun line, including some very interesting, very heavy AA guns. No, not AA, like AT guns. So anti-tank guns. We shall see if that works. That player is a very good player, and he often brings something that's completely counter-meta, but his infantry is frankly crap. So we shall see how he proposes to push up into the board and grab objectives. We don't know yet. There's also a couple of lists that are bringing Cav. I'm pretty sold on Cav in V3, although I know a lot of people think that they're crap, but I really like my Cav in V3. Wishing I could take it with my Brits even. But I've been running Germans and German Cav. Oh man, I love it. So yeah, I think there's something there, especially with the sticky objectives. So that was the 1250 builds. What about the 600 point builds? Well, MSU is the order of the day. Less people find the points to buy armor, but still quite a lot do. And I'm looking at the people who don't and thinking, you're not bringing enough anti-armor in your list. So I think that this will be one, the 600 point games will be won by people, by people's lists a little bit more than we're used to. Because if you're bringing an all infantry list, which, might be great for the mission, but you'll get shot to pieces by that enemy armor. So that might suck a bit. MSU, of course, 6 people are bringing MSU, so a lot of people are still bringing MSU. And you know what? 2 people, 2 brave souls, are bringing Death Stars even in 600 points, which is mad. It's just mad. But we shall see what happens. Because these Death Stars, 9+ tanks, will be practically invulnerable at this point level because people are definitely not bringing enough anti-tank to deal with an armored platoon, and surely not bringing enough anti-tank to deal with Death Stars. What about player ranking? Since I know almost all the players, and the ones I don't know, I know that they are new players, so I can actually rank everyone. And the ranking for this tournament goes between 1 and 5. some going to their first tournament, and arguably I am a 5-player rank. I am potentially in the top 5, top 10 in the world, ish. At least other players at the WTC have ranked me a 5 player, so I will give myself a 5 for this one. So we have a huge spread of player ranking, but most of the players going actually are 3.5s. So strong players and 7 players that are going have been on the national teams, either for the Danish national team or the Danish second national team. So a lot of players knows their stuff here. 3 on average, which is average tournament players. List rankings, huge caveats here. I'm still not comfortable with list ranking in V3. I still need more data in order to be accurate. I'm still being surprised by where the meta is moving and what is possible and what you can do and can't do. But at 1250, I am ranking the lists between a 2 and a 4.5. So there are no completely bad lists in my opinion. Even the Death Stars have things that I'm looking at them and going, that's pretty nasty. But everything in my eyes could be optimized a bit more. There are places where you could tailor it a little bit more. And of course, that's because the player himself wants something that's in this direction and not tailored, not optimized, but tailored to his likings. The average here is a 3.5, so a strong tournament list on average. So strong tournament players bringing strong tournament lists. You'd almost think that this was a nationals, right? At 600 points, it's a lot more difficult to assess for me. I think that the lists are between 2 and 4. With the average being a 3.1 average tournament lists, more or less, which is, but again, it's so difficult to assess, especially at this low point cost. I'm not used to reading lists that are that low on point cost. And at the same time, it gets a lot more swingy, right? Did you bring enough anti-tank? Did you bring a heavy tank? All of that can get really swingy depending on your matchups. My main takeaways: armor is still everywhere. Everyone's bringing armor. You need to bring armor in order to deal with the enemy armor. Death Stars are still being attempted. We might still see those do well. MSU everywhere. People are bringing all those light mortars. They are bringing all those small teams, the anti-tank rifles and stuff. That is everywhere. Mechanists. I like that attempt. We shall see where it goes and if it works or not. I'm sort of going back to the playstyle that I started out with my Brits for this tournament here. So we shall see if that works, right? Loading up veterans in something that can move them up the board. That's the place I'm going. And a lot of other people are doing sort of similar things. And then we have barbecue, gun lines, cavalry, all of that is it's still there, which means that we have a huge spread of the armies that you're going to face, which is lovely, right? I like this. I really like the spread of the meta here for version 3. My predictions are, and I'm putting myself in the potential top 5 here, just because it really looks like I could end up there. If I do, what I'm doing here is I'm adding up the 2 lists, their scores and the player score, and combining that in total. And if I look over the tournament itself, there's a lot of players ending up on 10. So that's a very tight field. Very, very tight, right? Where the lists either end up in 3.5s or the player is a 3 or the other way around. And that means that I think for the center placements, the middle of the pack here, there's going to be a lot of fighting about that. People are really going to, which also means that the top 5 here, I might be completely wrong. But I think Michael Eitstrud has a good chance of ending up in the top half. are in the top 5. Actually, I think he's going to either win it or end up in the top 5. He has 24 auto dice in his list. It's Italian armor, lots of auto blinders, and he's the one that brings the barbecue, so he has that counter punch. And he's been playing Italians for quite a while, so he's good at it. I also think that Thor has a decent chance. He has been playing his French armor for a while. I played him at our last tournament, Winter War, and demolished his list, but that was a lot more MSU-y. But right now he's at 20 auto dice, and he has brought a lot of tanks. And they have anti-tank guns as well, which means that he can deal with what I did to him last time. I was basically ruining his list by using my tanks, and he couldn't really deal because he had darker tanks. I also think Jan Petersen has a decent chance. Jan Petersen, of course, has been on the national team multiple times. Not necessarily for Denmark, though, but he has been on the Scottish national team multiple times for World Team Championships. And he's bringing his Finnish MSU list, a couple of those cheap T20s in it, and 23 auto dice. And he's been playing Finns for a while now, in a couple of tournaments. He knows what he's doing. He could also very easily end up in the top 5. Also, I think Anders Gerfeldt, with his very unusual camping Germans, he's the one bringing anti-tank guns. So he has a camping German with a lot of light machine guns in his infantry, and then he has a gun line for the rest. He could also do very well, 18 auto dice. And then, of course, my slightly lower auto dice count here of 17. I'm bringing my Brits, I'm bringing armor and veterans. Gurkhas in the mix as well. I think I could do well with this list. Of course, I think so. I won the last tournament that I participated in, and the one before that I was on the final table, got knocked off by Michael Fee, so I think I have a decent shot at ending up in the top half as well, and in the top 5. Right. Thank you so much to the organizing team, and thank you so much to Michael Christensen, who is TOing the Danish Nationals this year. I'm looking forward to going and seeing if I can take back the trophy. I've won it once before. Maybe I can do so again. That was it from me today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and next time I'll look through some of the more interesting lists. Cheers.